Good evening, everybody. This is the February 2nd meeting of the Region 19 Board of Education. I would call the meeting to order at this time. Mindy, if you could call attendance.
Herb Erico, Kim Christensen,
Here.
Liz Peasy, Nancy. Liz, are you here?
Yes, here.
Nancy
I'm
Sidelander,
sorry.
Here.
Bob Jellin, Elizabeth McCosh Lilly, Jim Mark,
Here.
Janice Chamberlain,
Here.
She's here. Yeah.
Tony Apicicchio,
Yep, here.
Sarah Smith,
Here.
Deborah Holgren,
Here.
and Tim Work.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. We always start with an opportunity for the public to speak. Do we have any email messages from the public at this point in time?
At this point in time, we do not have any messages.
All right, then we can move right on to committee reports. And we can start with personnel.
Elizabeth isn't here. Do you?
Yeah. Can you
So-
cover it, Janice, by any chance?
I'm sorry?
Can you cover it?
Yeah, so a personnel committee did meet on the 15th. I think the notes are in our packets tonight. Where did they go? I know that we were looking at two different job descriptions during that committee and making amendments to them. Also looking at the salary. There are administrative assistants that work very closely with the superintendent. So we made some adjustments to the salary schedule as well on those. And those documents, I think, were also attachments in the packet.
Yeah.
They were. There are a couple, I think, hold on. I think that there were some motions. Yeah, so there are two motions after the consent agenda that are on the after the consent agenda that are on the proposed tonight. So I can make those.
Thank you. Yeah, just to further elaborate, the Personnel Committee did meet about altering or modifying the description for these two administrative assistants and also recommending salary changes. The Personnel Committee did recommend those changes and the salary modifications, and those are the motions that will be coming forward tonight. There can be additional discussion at that point in time. Sharon knows quite a bit more about this than and can also chime in and explain when we get to that point. But we do think that they're appropriate and necessary, and we will get to that when we get to those motions. How about policy?
Policy has been very busy, as you can tell from your packet. We have had
Yep.
numerous meetings. So much so that Sharon had to, I think we've met twice in between our meeting, our last full board meeting. And there were so many changes that Sharon was able to create like a crosswalk so we could see exactly what's been changed. But in the consent agenda, you'll see we have two policies for you to approve tonight that you had received last meeting. One is a plan for minority educator recruitment, and the other is the sexual discrimination and sexual harassment policy. And then you are receiving a bunch of other policies that we are amending. We had approved those probably, I think, back in September. And so after having our attorneys look at them and make recommendations on the changes, there are three more or different policies that we have combined sections and deleted sections and just moved it together to make it more cohesive. So you have those policies in your agenda to review this month for us to approve next month.
Thank you, Liz.
Yep.
Finance?
Finance met before this meeting tonight, and we reviewed and actually made a recommendation for the board to accept tonight on the agenda, on the consent agenda, the qualitative aspects of the accounting report prepared by Bloom Shapiro, and also the auditor's report prepared by Bloom Shapiro, whose name is now changed. And I think I didn't catch that earlier, but so both of those documents were also enclosed in our board packet tonight. Nothing unusual to report. I think we're ending the June 2020 year in a good financial situation at this point in time. And then we also had on our agenda the M&J bus contract discussion, just a quick discussion. We have a 5-year contract coming up for the Mansfield and Willington towns, so that we'll be looking at that in the, in the next couple of months, so.
And we'll be discussing that in executive session as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Janice. And also thank you for filling in on personnel. That's appreciated. But now you're up again, building.
Yeah, so building committee met. We are trying to, we still have some, in terms of the roof and the solar project, we still have a few minor punch list items that I think Dennis was trying to draw to a close. And to finalize that in terms of that's with Greenwood. I always get the two confused, but with Greenwood Industries, who are finalizing our roof, some minor things, and then the other pieces, solar project is well underway as well, and also coming to a close, and we have finalized our contract with Eversource also, so that, and we are collecting now on our solar, I think, getting some credits back for that, so they're up and operational.
Yes, we're tracking it.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. EDJ, Tony.
The Equity, Diversity, and Justice Committee met on January 20th. The minutes for that meeting are in your packet. We began our review of the safety survey that went out in November, questions about the SRO program. And we are continuing that discussion. We'll be meeting again on February 23rd, and we expect to be bringing findings and a report to the board at the March meeting. So we'll be meeting on the 23rd. We also, at that meeting, finalized our review with the music department of the rollout of the statement of guiding principles and the accompanying choral music. And later on in tonight's meeting, there'll be a presentation of that final product. Also, the statement of guiding principles is up on the main page of the E.O. Smith website now. So that's where we are.
Thank you, Tony. We have a student's report from Lindsay and Colby.
Hi. So we're just going to run over some things that have happened during the past month. So Jocelyn wrote about how that world language tutoring is shifting into our second semester. We start tutoring again tomorrow, and it occurs from 11 to 11:30 every day, every Wednesday, and creates a safe, comfortable place where students can help on working ranges from homework to help with studying for an upcoming test or quiz from other peers. Tutoring for different languages would normally occur during study halls, but we've now shifted towards a Zoom model. And then I wrote about how the drama club is presenting our senior directed 1X, directed by 6 members of the class of 2021. This will take place this Friday and Saturday from 7:30 to 9:30, and they'll be available on the E.O. Smith Fine Arts YouTube page. There are 3 different shows each night, and includes 1 student written show and 1 student adaptation. The drama club is also moving towards having auditions for a virtual production of The Great Gatsby, which will be happening in May.
Great. Lindsay?
Hello, everyone. I wrote about how Sunshine Club is continuing to have a positive impact on the atmosphere of the school by having a Sunshine Week every month, which is dedicated to showing appreciation for EOS teachers and staff. The managers of the club Senior Kat Grenier, and advisors Mrs. Ruick and Ms. Hassan engender a positively refreshing sense of community and school spirit. So I just wanted to shout out to them. And Amog wrote that a lot of students have questions about the process behind the decision for SROs for the upcoming school years. This was obviously a hot topic throughout the summer, and they're hoping for more updates, information, or a timeline on the decision the Board of Education can provide. And Matt wrote about how music students participated in a virtual Eastern Regional Music Festival on January 9th. Although an actual concert was not able to be staged because of distancing restrictions, students were still able to listen and learn from professional musicians that matched their respective ensembles. Students will soon audition for the more competitive All-State Festival.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you. Jim, can I just add in, this is kind of
Sure.
hot off the press because it was a student issue or a student concern that our representatives brought forward to have a conversation about. Just in response to some, and this happened or is going to be implemented recently, so they wouldn't be aware of this yet. But just to share, in response to some of the input, so Nick and Matthew, I believe, have been working with Dr. DiLoretto's wellness committee to around ideas and suggestions and things like that. So some of the things that are in the works, they've been moved to the end of A and E period instead of at the very beginning in response to the concerns that had that kids are tired first thing in the morning and may not be as willing to share what they're thinking or feeling. That was supposed to start Monday, but we've had 2 remote days, so that hasn't worked out. It will start tomorrow or Thursday. There are 2 options for polls to collect student responses. So in case students don't want to share their ideas and thoughts out loud, their teachers have been implementing student polls for them to share electronically what they're thinking and sharing to generate some conversation. Weekly theme grounds wellness check activities right now specifically around perspective and active listening. And the Mondays are going to include the weekly news show and not have activities per se, but focus around the weekly news show and meditation as an option if that's something that's, those are just some I think examples of the collaboration between the students and Dr. DiLoretto and the wellness group, and just that willingness to bring stakeholders to the table to make just-in-time changes that really impact the student perspective, hopefully. So we're looking forward to hearing more about how that works out.
Good.
Did I miss anything, Dr. DiLoretto? Awesome.
Thank you, Lou. We can move on to the superintendent's report.
Yes, so I put a laundry list of January meetings that I will not go through. Just talking a little bit about the vaccine administration. We are starting, the Eastern Highlands is starting a vaccine clinic starting tomorrow at E.O. Smith every Wednesday indefinitely. They said that they can do about 300 vaccines a day. So when folks are able to register, it is an option for them to register on Wednesdays at EO. I included the school attendance rates that were reported by the Connecticut State Department of Education as of November, just to give a gauge. We have to report weekly student engagement or student attendance to school. So the first set is E.O. Smith's engagement. So all students and then students with high needs this year versus last year. I think the good news is our attendance has not suffered but from the pandemic as far as these percentages are concerned. However, we are all very concerned about the actual engagement of students while they are checking in. And that's something that we're all working on to ensure that, not just being in attendance, but that there's active participation. And we discussed in the past the different structures and safety nets that are in place to try and determine how kids are doing and to intervene with the appropriate response to make sure that they're okay social emotionally, that academically they're getting what they need, and that we're responding in a timely fashion. So, and I also include the state attendance rates, which we are significantly higher, which is again another good sign, and certainly a credit to the high school administration and to our staff and all the support folks who are working really hard, and to our students and families who just obviously make education a priority. Something worthy to discuss, there's been conversation, the Family First Coronavirus Relief Act was not extended, so there has been conversation around implementation of, when teachers have to be out sick, we continue to work with, or quarantined, or whatever the case may be. We continue to work with staff around their individual circumstances the best that we can to make sure that they're accommodated, and whenever possible, are trying to accommodate with proctors in the classroom. So the 6 proctors that you allowed us to hire this year, who have been on call in building every day since the beginning of the year, have been so valuable to our ability to stay open in our hybrid environment, so that we have appropriate coverage for staff who may need to be home for a COVID-related reason. Sports practices, they're all in the news today about some changes that may be coming down the road, but as of right now, we still fall under the CIAC guidelines that were put forward. Practices began on January 19th. Games are planned to start February 8th. There's a schedule. The schedule was shared by Dan. It's part of your packet where you can take a look at the schedule that's also posted on the CIAC website. And that is it.
Okay. Any questions on the superintendent's report? All right. Hearing none, we can move on. We have a number of items on the consent agenda for tonight. Before we get to that, are there any items on the agenda that somebody would like to either remove or amend before we get to any decisions?
Jim, it's Tony.
Tony, yep.
I would like to remove the plan for minority educator recruitment from the consent agenda so that we can discuss it before acting on it.
Okay. Are there any other changes or requests for modification on the consent agenda? Hearing none, then that particular item will be removed for the time being. The consent agenda minus the request to approve the plan for minority education recruitment will not be on the consent agenda for the time being. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So move.
Moved by Nancy.
Now second, Sarah.
Second by Sarah. Is there any discussion on this before we get to a vote? Okay, hearing that, I'll move it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? You don't get to vote, Mateo, but thank you. Then that particular motion passes. Now we can get back to the item that was removed from the consent agenda. And that's the request to approve the plan for minority education recruitment as recommended by the policy committee. Tony, did you want to indicate why you wanted that removed?
Yes, I did. I wanted to discuss it. I reviewed the policy, and I see that it's heavily weighted and targeted towards looking at ways to reach out and recruit, looking at alternative, or looking at all the sources of recruiting minority applicants for teaching staff. And I think that's fine as far as it goes, but I did want to discuss an issue. I've taken a look at the statutes and at the, there actually has been a minority teacher recruitment policy oversight council, which was established at the state level. The initial report that came out of that work a year ago in January of 2020 was issued by the then State Commissioner of Education, now going to be the U.S. Commissioner of Education, Dr. Cardona. That council has made a number of recommendations and is continuing to make recommendations as required by the statute, which gave rise to, I think it's the one that's cited at the end of one of the ones cited at the end of this policy, Connecticut General Statutes 10 and 156 EE. There are a number of educators on that committee, including Elsa Nunez, the president of Eastern. What I'd like to discuss as maybe as a moving forward, and I think this is a great first step, but I also think that it's very clear that we have to also look at any potential barriers there are within our district that would make it harder for us to attract, support, develop, and retain minority teaching staff. I don't know how many other people here were at the Democratic Discourse session last October, but in looking through the reports from that session, there were actually a couple of comments from people saying that they would not recommend to any of their acquaintances or friends who were teachers or they weren't unqualified recommending that they apply for a teaching position at E.O. Smith. I think we need to spend some additional work in addition to, and I said, I have no problem with implementing this policy. I think it's a good first step, is to determine whether there are barriers here and whether we need to come up with some approach plans to address them. Sharon, maybe you can, my understanding is at this point, we have no minority teaching staff at the school.
No certified staff. Correct.
Okay. And have we had, I mean, I don't know when we've had any. I mean, I think it's something we need to look at. I mean, there's clearly everywhere in the state, this actual policy, I've seen it adopted by many other boards of education. So I'm assuming we didn't draft it. They're doing the same thing. And so we're all going to be competing for the same applicants. And I think we need to spend some time thinking about how we can present ourselves in a way that we have the ability to attract, support, develop, and retain, not just get them in the door, get people to apply. We have to make it a place people want to work. So I'm happy to bring that up with the EDJ committee for action. And again, I have no objection to this policy. I just wanted to get people's thoughts about whether that's a prudent avenue to pursue. I think it is myself, but Sarah.
I appreciate your thoughtfulness, but I'm wondering, I do think it should be discussed. I'm wondering if it's just the nature of our quiet community with not a lot of attractions here for, perhaps young minority, staff. I mean, what's here to attract them? If you have some wisdom on what we could do in our community to make this more attractive, because as a young teacher, I know I left my town because it was, it was really very quiet. I moved to a city.
Dennis, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think, in our committee, we can discuss specifics around things. But one of the people that I had reached out to actually works with the University of Connecticut, and he works with minority students that are actually in the field of teaching, or that's where their focus is. And in fact, it was suggested to me that maybe we do some, we do some very specific outreach to that group to have them come, have those students be interning, in doing their student teaching here, I guess. I'm not using some of the right terms, but doing their student teaching here. And that is one way that you can, and make some arrangement that to kind of encourage them or to keep them if they are good candidates. And so, so we could, I think there are definitely people that we could work with that could help us in terms of some of this recruiting. But I think we might need to do some other creative things in order to do that. And some of the traditional ways of recruiting might not be the way that we get people into our school.
Let me just go back. Tony, you're not objecting to any of the language in the policy itself?
No,
right?
I don't object. I just see this as a first step, but that I don't think that by adopting this policy, we've addressed it addresses the issue. I think we have to look
And
beyond.
that's your primary point.
Yes, that's my primary point.
Right.
Yeah, because, one of the biggest things about policy is that you can establish policy, but there's always the question of how it's going to be implemented. And I agree with you that implementation is a discussion maybe for the EDJ committee as part of its ongoing efforts. But I agree. I mean, the policy in and of itself is great, but how are we going to implement it so that we can make it more effective in our own community? Lou, did you have something you wanted to say? You're muted. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in addition to that, we have a meeting coming up in 2 weeks. We should bring that up then. Our working group, our parent and staff working group.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just bring this up at that point too and get their thoughts.
Tony, I think you're right on point, and there was discussion at the policy committee meeting that this really is the first step, and that working out the details of implementation and the action steps that have to follow would be something that, again, that maybe we could talk about at EDJ as part of that 5-pronged plan, or those pieces that were being held accountable to. Diversity of staff was one of those 5 pieces that the actual process of how do we go about adhering to that minority recruiting policy is really where we're going to get leverage. And I think you're right about, kind of taking a dive into, what is it that might be preventing the school or the community from being appealing to diverse teaching groups. So I think there's a lot of work that we have to do there. And I do think that the EDJ committee, that's one of the things under the umbrella where those conversations could really get teased out.
Mateo, I thought I saw you wave a hand. Did you have a comment you wanted to make?
No, not really. But I mean, it could, as someone had mentioned earlier, it could be just the quiet nature of our town. I know that, or I'd imagine that we have a lot of rental units around here because of the university, but I don't know. I remember my dad saying that most of the available housing has now been or the housing market right now is really dry because, we're a pretty quiet place to live. And I guess people have been buying here. But I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The housing market is an issue. There's no question about it. Right now, just so you'll know, because it's right up my alley, there is a good demand. There are a lot of buyers out there that are looking to be able to buy. The problem is finding good housing. Sellers are not necessarily looking to sell in the ways that they have historically at this time of the year. And you do have the issue, you're absolutely right, about investors coming in and purchasing single-family homes that they turn into investment properties, which kind of limits what you are bringing into the town and affects the population within the town. Because if it's primarily students that transient, they're not going to be there for any extended length. One of the things that the town has tried to do is amended zoning regulations to make it more attractive for multifamily housing, especially in the Four Corners area. And the university has attempted to put up significant roadblocks to all of this planning because they are very concerned, and understandably so, that if multifamily apartments go in, they're going to be more attractive to students, and the university is not going to be able to fill up its dorms. And so there's a battle going on between the town that wants to attract multifamily and the university that wants to keep it from coming into the town. But it's a good point, and it is an issue, and I don't have an answer for it. I'm just letting you know where the things are at this stage of the game. But are there any other comments on Tony's removal? Liz?
So as a policy committee, we just amended a bunch of policies that we had passed earlier. So even though, like Tony, you like the spirit of the policy or the way it's written, I'm wondering if we shouldn't approve it yet, like to keep going back and amending our policies. Is it something, I mean, I absolutely agree. We should have brought it to your committee to review, or we should have had a joint meeting with your committee and personnel, because we developed this as the policy committee, but not the experts in any of this area. So I don't know, Jill, like, to pass policy and then amend it a few months later, I don't know if that's the track we want to take.
Elizabeth, I think the piece the policy in and of itself doesn't necessarily pull out the regulations or the actual action steps. So I think that was, part of the process was, this is the overall policy of what we stand for in regards to minority recruitment. The how that plays out and how that rolls out could certainly be part of the regulations that don't have to be put in front of the board for revision, if there needs to be revision to that. So that would be an option as well.
Okay.
Nancy.
Well, I think that in regards to what Liz is saying, I think, and Sharon, I think really that's what it is the regulations. And I would love to see somebody on the EDJ committee who's also on the personnel committee be working on this too, or put a personnel person in there as well, because I think we need to look at it as that way also. And Sarah says, well, nobody wants to come live here, but actually there are a lot of people who do want to come live here. They like the quiet part, they like the nature part, they like that they're near the family. And so I think we need to be careful how dismissive we are about that.
Mhm.
I think
Well, I really didn't say that exactly. It's just you are young, you're probably going to be
I know a lot of
looked at to be hired. And if you're a minority person, you would like to think you're not the only person that's in your, ethnic or racial group.
Well, that's the beauty of having the university here. Too.
Yeah.
Tim.
One of the things an adoption of this would create is certainly some obligations in terms of, all these things, or not all these, most of these have very specific obligations, whether it be records or participation or maintenance or activities. So we need to be clear that, adoption, which I would recommend, I think we can build this into the overall EDJ framework. But I guess I'd like to hear from our administration, who presumably is the designee referenced here, that we're going to be in a position to deliver on the policy, because there's quite a number of very explicit activities called out here. So I guess it'd be good to get some follow-up in a subsequent meeting as to the status of implementation of these and how they break down and who's responsible.
Very good. Look, if there is a feeling that you would prefer to postpone a decision on this policy for tonight, somebody would need to make a motion. It's off the consent agenda. If there is not that feeling, if everything the discussion has brought up would suggest that the policy in and of itself and on its face is fine, but we need to do work in terms of how we're going to implement it, then I would suggest that somebody make a motion with respect to approving that particular policy.
I move that we approve this policy tonight. Everything else that we need to do, which is a lot, would be done under either regulation or procedures. But this policy, in my opinion, we should move.
I second it.
I second that.
Okay, second by Nancy, just ahead of Tim's. Is there any further discussion on this particular motion? All right, hearing none, I'll move it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that motion passes. The policy passes. Thank you, everybody. That was a very good discussion. Moving on the agenda, we've now passed the consent agenda, and we are now dealing with a couple of motions that are on the calendar for tonight regarding the salary and benefits policy for the executive assistants. Janice, you had indicated before that this was something you would be willing to bring up and move forward.
Yes, I can do that. I guess I can state the motion first and then we can have discussion once we get the motion in second. So I'll go ahead and state the motion.
Okay,
Okay. I, Janice Chamberlain, making the motion that the Regional School District number 19 Board of Education approve the salary and benefits policy for executive assistants as recommended by the Personnel Committee.
okay. That's reference number 9, just so you know on your agenda. Is there a second? I see a second, a quiet second from Nancy. So we do have a second. Is there any further discussion on this particular motion? Hearing none, I'll move it to a vote. All in favor? Show of hands, because some of you are quiet.
Aye.
Okay. Are there any opposed? I don't see any opposition. Any abstaining? Again, I don't see anybody. All right, that motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Janice, there's a second motion there, if you would be so kind.
Yeah. So I'll make the motion that the Regional School District number 19 Board of Education approve an increase of $2,000 to the base salary for the executive assistant to the regional superintendent as recommended by the Personnel Committee. And it's reference number 10 in your board packet.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, that was a louder second. Okay, good. Is there any discussion on this particular motion? I'm not hearing or seeing anybody. Oh, Nancy, did you have your hand up? Yeah.
Is this a one-time increase or what is the, or if this person leaves, it's $2,000, whatever the base salary is now and plus $2,000, that's where everything starts again?
Yeah, I can speak to that if that's okay.
Sure.
So the discussion at our Personnel Committee focused around the hours outside of the school day that have become a part of that position. And we looked at and compared salaries from other districts for the similar positions, and noticed that they were either at a higher pay scale or there were stipends involved, or it was a separate position as a secretary to the Board of Education in and of itself. So it was a recommendation of the committee that rather than deal with a stipend, that we recognize in the job description that that responsibility is part of the job for work outside the school day, for attending the board meetings in the evening and taking minutes and submitting those minutes and including it in the salary scale. So it was added onto the base salary of the salary schedule for the executive administrative assistant to the superintendent as part of that process.
Sharon?
Yes,
Go
Bob?
ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Sharon, I'm sorry. I've been trying to get on. I came in a little bit late, but I would like it, mark that I am indeed here today. So I've been listening. I've been listening to the discussion.
I have marked you present. I saw your name up there, Bob. We're glad you're here.
Thank you. I am too.
Bob, did you have a comment on the motion?
No, I didn't. I've been trying to mute and unmute myself. So now I'm unmuted, which, leaves some concern, I'm sure. But anyway, I am here. So.
Okay, great. Is there any further discussion on that particular motion? I'm not seeing anybody. I'm not hearing anybody. So I'll put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. That motion passes as well. Thank you, everybody. We now move on. We have a discussion item. This is our official rollout of the declaration, or I should say our statement of guiding principles. I'm not sure who to turn it over to at this point, but maybe Tony, and we'll see where we go from there.
Oh, you're muted, Tony.
Maybe you weren't prepared for that, Tony. I may be surprised.
No, I'm just going to lead us into this. I mentioned this before in the committee reports, we have, as you know, the board has approved and it's the statement of guiding principles. It is now up on the website, but the official rollout, we've been working with Amanda and the choral department in a video, including music and slides with a link to our statement. And that's been, we've been working on this for a number, and the chorus and students have been working on it, and they've done an amazing job. And this is the first official rollout of this package, which includes the musical accompaniment. And Sharon, you can take it from here.
Okay. Can you see, is it on the screen? Can you see my screen? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Not quite right, Sharon.
Nope,
Not
and
anymore.
now it's gone. Hold on. I was so excited I had it up there right the first time.
This is going to be rolled out to the teachers at a staff meeting tomorrow, right, Sharon? As
Correct.
a second step, and then we'll be continuing to explore and discussing tonight other ways to get it out to the community.
Can you see my screen now?
No,
No. Okay. Well,
it's a preview for you, Jeff.
hold on. One more time. All best laid plans. Third time's a charm, or fourth.
I think you're on 5.
Something happened. There we go.
There we
You
go.
got it? Great.
Okay.
Not getting the music.
Yeah. We can't hear it.
On the left by the timestamp, there's a picture of a microphone. Yeah, when you're down on your left, as there's a picture not of a microphone, of a speaker. That could be the volume.
Are you not hearing it, Jeff?
Correct.
None of us.
No one's hearing.
None of us are, Sharon.
But you see,
Yeah.
when you put your cursor down there on the left, you have a speaker. That could be the volume switch for it. You
Says
don't-
it's mute now.
Yeah,
it's mute right now, so
Okay, there.
It's on,
it's in the neighborhood of there.
All right, let's give it a shot. Let me know. Give me a hand if give me a thumbs up if you can hear it.
it's still
No,
got there.
You're muted.
You're muted, Sharon. It's muted.
There.
There you
Oops.
go.
It's on, maybe it's unmuted.
Did you hear that? Because it was off mute before.
When you share your computer screen, you have to share your sound.
Oh, right.
Yeah, you go to your
That's
audio.
part of that
source
whole.
There you go. Thank you, Colby.
Join
Thank
audio.
goodness for Colby and others who have a little more savvy. Help me out here. Where am I going to find it? Mindy took me through this the last time, and I am not seeing it here.
There should be a little box that you check that says like share audio.
There it is.
Okay.
So many reasons why we have our students here.
We all help each other. That's a great thing.
All right, let's try it again. Sorry about that, folks.
This is gonna do it, I just know.
You do, because I follow directions.
Yay. Yay.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. we shall overcome someday. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We're gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. We're gonna let nobody turn me around. We're gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom. We're gonna let racism turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. We're gonna let racism turn me round. We're gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom. One foot right of the other, and lead with God. One foot right of the other, and lead with love. We gotta put one foot from the other, and lead with love. One foot from the other, and lead with love. Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. You're not alone. Don't you give in. Don't you give in. Keep moving on. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot from the other, and lead with love. One foot from the other, and lead with love. One foot from the other, and lead with love. One foot from the other, and lead with love. And lead with love. And lead with love.
Very nice. Very well done.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Excellent job. Thank you, Amanda and the choir. That was really well done. The finished product was just wonderful. Thank you. Oh, Jeff, you have a thumbs up on your screen. Okay. I understand what you're doing. Is there any discussion on the rolling out of the guiding principles?
Sharon, do you want to just kind of go through what is on tap now and any other thoughts you might have?
Sure. So tomorrow we're going to share this. I'm going to stop sharing. I can't talk to the screen. What all I can see is the agenda. I see faces. So it'll roll out to staff tomorrow. It's already posted on the website, but there's going to be a conversation around what the best format will be to send it out to our families and community. You know, we have our letter that the EDJ committee worked really hard on formulating to make sure that it really represents the rationale behind all of this work, and then the guiding principles, and then the musical rendition piece. So there does need to, I think, needs to be some, even though it's there, it's almost like we have a soft opening of the information to the community, but that we'd like to send it out to the community through PowerSchool, through kind of our parent communication system to bring it to everyone's attention. I don't want to rely, and I don't think the committee wants to rely on folks happening to see it if they happen by the website. to really bring it to their attention. So that'll be further discussion coming down the road. And then opportunities, Dr. DiLoretto and I have talked about opportunities specifically around the guiding principles to allow some unpacking of those guiding principles with our staff as well as with our students, so that they see it, they have an opportunity to have it rolled out to them specifically, and an opportunity to wrap their brain around what that means. And you'll hear a little bit from a group that's going to share a presentation with you tonight. And that was one of the pieces that, you know, in the back of their mind, knowing that these guiding principles exist, that, you know, they're making sure that their presentation and what they're moving forward really represents the essence of inclusivity and the ideals behind the guiding principles. So I feel like we have very willing and able folks who understand what this all means and who are definitely on board. And I think that the outcome is going to be really, really good once it's shared widespread and it really becomes the backbone of, you know, the decisions that we make at E.O. Smith. So that is the intent.
Tony?
Yeah, Sharon, so one way we would do this is emails out to the parent and student community, everyone that's access to PowerSource. I know that at least one outside group, I think it's a Just Peace committee at one of the local churches, had asked if when it was available, they would be able to present it to their committee and to their congregation. Is there going to be a way, I mean, maybe we want to make sure there's a way that those communications can come in and that they can be made available to them as well. So they may not, there may be groups that are not otherwise on the list that's getting it. And then I also wanted to, I'm assuming also that the musical part of this is also going to be added to the website. So anyone just coming to the website can view it there as well, right? Okay.
Yes. And I think at least for right now, we don't really have a means to like do a email blast to the community at large. So if there are folks who you know, want that information sent to them, they certainly can reach out to my office and we're more than happy to share it.
Okay.
That would certainly be the way, Tony, if there are groups like that you know of, to reach out to Sharon, because she's right now going to be in the best position to be able to send them what they need and want. I mean, and we'd welcome that.
Yeah, no, and I think Lou, that was something that came up in a communication that came through you from an outside, and I imagine you may be aware of some of the other. I just think we want to make sure that anybody who wants to get it and you know, can get a hold of it and show it to their and present it. So
I agree.
Is there any more discussion?
Jim?
Yes, Lou.
No, this is Bob.
Oh, Bob, okay.
Yeah, I'm, you know, as you folks were speaking, I was wondering whether it might not be a bad idea to contact the local town websites and you know, put it on their website. Is that a possibility? The 3 towns of the region.
Certainly can.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
Would it be something that the board? Would it be something that the board and the EDJ committee would be willing to support doing that?
Sure, we have no objection, to my knowledge, to having this disseminated.
I think it would. I think it would further the dispersal of the whole plan. Number one, the plan, but also I think the thing that would really attract attention would be the musical aspect of it as well. For the larger communities, the 3 larger communities, other than just the E.O. Smith community.
We can certainly reach out if the board is amenable to that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I don't think we need a motion. I think
no,
just do it, Sharon.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
I was thinking that we should send it to our sending schools like MMS, Columbia. I think that would be a really easy way to start getting it out to the community, to future students. And you guys did an excellent job. Really good.
It was mostly the chorus. Jim, I think Nick had a comment.
Yeah. Who did? Nick?
Yeah, I just
Go ahead, Nick.
So for getting this out to the students, I think a great avenue would be the wellness checks. If that could be a video, we could send the wellness checks. And on the idea of sending it to the sending schools, I know we have a page set up. I don't know if it's released yet, but for welcoming students who are coming to our school next year, I think we could put that on that page as well. There's a link that will be sent out to those students. It's like a Canvas page where they can, they get an introduction to our school. And I think that's a great video to include there as well.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Thank you. As far as the sending schools, I would think that with respect to at least Columbia and any of the schools that are sending kids to us, tuition or otherwise, that they would be included as part of what we would send out in any case. The middle schools, in all of the towns, as Nick just said, a vehicle for getting it to them so that their kids know coming in that this has been a policy adopted by the board in Region 19. That would be good. That's a great idea, Nick. Thank you.
Oops.
Is there any other discussion? I'm looking at everybody to see if anybody has raised their hands. I'm not seeing anybody. So hearing none, seeing none, I'm going to move on to the next item on the discussion agenda, participatory budgeting group. I'm not sure what that is, Sharon.
Huh. Funny you should ask, Mr. Mark. The participatory budgeting group is and I don't want to steal their thunder, so I'm not going to talk too much. They're a subgroup of the disciplinary discourse group. And Nick inquired as to whether or not the group could come and present a proposal of a project that they've been working on to the student advisory council. So the council elected to have the group come and present and to share their proposal for a project that really is intended to be ongoing for many years to come. And so I asked them, as you may be seeing some budgetary implications for us down the road, ask them to come and present to you so that you can get an essence of who they are and get a feel for all the hard work that they've done and the hard work that they have in front of them, because this is an introductory proposal, and they're going to share some really good news with you in regards to that. So with that said, I am going to let the group take over the screen with their presentation and do their introductions as they present their sections. And Nick, I don't know if you want to introduce. I'm not sure who's speaking tonight, but if the folks who are on board this evening want to introduce themselves, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Kronoyer. And I just want to echo what Superintendent said. This group has worked very hard, and they spent months and months preparing this, not only this presentation, but doing the work they've been doing. And I'm very excited for this presentation, and I'm very happy with everything they have done so far. And I think you'll hear from them, and I don't want to say anything that they're going to say, but this is an amazing group, and I think they would really add to what EO Smith has to offer in our core values as a school. And I can share the screen if you would. Okay. Hold on, I gotta just pull it up here. All right, can you guys see that?
Yes.
All right, and then I'll let the group take it away.
Hi, I'm Goldman, and I'm a junior from EO Smith. Could you please move to the next slide? Thank you. So as previously mentioned, our group is a subcommittee of the Deliberation and Discourse Project, which had already hosted 2 deliberations this past fall. one on race and identity, and the other on political division. Currently, the group is divided into subcommittees to work on different projects, including a community speaker series. I won't go too in depth because I'm afraid that we'll run out of time. Narrative 4, which focuses on story exchange and empathy. We also have subcommittees, working on podcasts and audio shelfies. And audio shelfies, in essence, is just talking about a book and the power of reading. And, down here we have our mission statement, the mission statement of deliberation and discourse. We are a body of 21st century learners, listeners, and leaders committed to fostering a more positive, equitable school climate through meaningful conversations that promote thoughtful, direct action and empathy and nonpartisan and the greater community. And in concise terms, PB is just a democratic process in which students create and vote on policies to decide how to spend part of the public budget. And down here is what we came up with during the numerous Zoom meetings that we have over the past few months. I don't know if I need to read it. I'll read it. We are committed to empowering students to make decisions about our school's resources and funding projects that will improve our community's climate and culture. Our mission is aligned with E.O. Smith's portrait of graduate, and we are committed to building civic skills, improving equitable access, and including all students in the decision-making process. And I'll briefly explain how this project came into being. So in November, we were contacted by ICD fellows from UConn. And after hearing about this whole thing, we were absolutely thrilled about this idea. So this subcommittee was just created soon after. To this day, we have made some progress, and I guess it's enough for us to do this presentation here. And there is a video link, but I'm afraid we won't have time. It's a short video, so I would advise anybody that's interested to watch it. We can maybe share the link, put the link in the chat later. And the good news is that this year we were provided with $2,500 to run our program. And we really hope that in the future that fund will be provided by E.O. Smith's Board of Education.
And here's where I come in. Hello, I'm Derek, a sophomore from E.O. Smith High School. When I go and explain first here is the impact of participatory budgeting on the school environment. Well, this is especially well suited for schools because it firstly builds a sense of community and civic engagement among students. So it essentially gives them a sense that they are contributing to their surroundings, to their environment, but not only that, but also to their peers, either directly or indirectly through funding a project that would have tangible impacts for said community. It also gives them the sense that they actually played a role in the process itself. It also promotes a student voice and student ownership of a community process. So again, it gives them a say in the process. It provides the students with a sense that basically they have a certain level of control over their own environment, and that their affairs really aren't, dictated by another group of adults that often aren't quite as connected to or familiar with that environment. They probably are quite familiar with it, but obviously might not be directly impacted by their own policy. Third, it provides opportunity to build equity and inclusion while breaking down barriers, those kind of social barriers in the school. This is really an attempt to unite the school community around this common idea, this common project that will benefit the entire community in which they exist. And this will really provide a lot of a discussion about it that will really bring together students that often do not converse with each other or really discuss things with each other as well. So, and finally, this can be connected to the curriculum, especially in terms of things like Socratic seminars where policies are discussed, and really in terms of any discussion, perhaps even maybe even panel discussions to some extent, although obviously these might not be quite as impassioned or as wrought with sharp opposition as those or debates. You can move on to the next slide. This also significantly impacts the students. Yeah, as I've said repeatedly before, this gives students a voice and helps them inform the administration of what the students need. So this better aligns the Board of Education's policy and the local government's policy around the students, around what the students, well, on the trajectory that the students want to see their community move in, and really what they want to see get done. It also encourages participation, in community projects, and will likely increase future civic participation by essentially getting their feet wet in the process of becoming involved in their communities. It really gives them a sense of what it is like to influence even local policy. It actually increases their engagement in elections. It makes people 7% more likely to vote. And that's a statistic from the Participatory Budgeting Project website. And the reason for that is kind of obvious. As I explained before, it kind of introduces them to the civic process and makes them more familiar with it so they'll be more comfortable with it in the future. It also increases transparency and cooperation between the Board of Education and students. Again, they're more receptive to each other's desires and the trajectory that they want to see the community move in, and maybe they could address some sort of, well, any sort of disagreements surrounding that. It also teaches real life skills such as collaboration, again, in terms of like discussing projects and policy, problem solving, that's essentially coming up with not only identifying a problem, but also coming up with a rational and implementable solution that will also have tangible impacts. And prioritization, what to deal with, like what problems do we address first before others. Yeah, it really improves us as well. And finally, sorry, I wasn't done yet. And finally, it can enhance students' academic performance, especially in terms of how this relates to the curriculum. No, I'm done. You can move on.
I am Mateo. I'm a senior. So now there's of course, like this is going to be a little more difficult to implement this year. And because we have funding and a grant, we want to try to implement one of these said projects by June. So kind of on a basic level, the way this would work is kind of first we found a steering committee and kind of hammer out the details of how exactly we'll do this. Then for the then after that you get student input on kind of school problems and different project ideas that kind of are low cost and that will benefit the whole school community. Things that could be such projects that could include purchasing more plants to make the school a greener place, maybe funding for murals, or maybe even purchasing supplies for the local soup kitchen. Maybe if people want another, we could even buy athletic equipment if that's what the people want. And after kind of getting the proposals, the steering committee will look through them and kind of choose 20 and then bring it back to the student body so that the student body can kind of pick their top 5. And from there you take the top 2 to 3 projects. Like it depends on the number of projects we can do. the number of projects we can do depends on how much they cost. Like murals might not, and like if the students decided to do murals, that might not cost as much as buying athletic equipment. So you could do both projects together, because since one might not cost as much and the other will take most of them. And the implementation will just be, doing, yeah, the implementation is pretty straightforward. Next slide, please. So for some of the specifics, to make sure that we know that, to make sure that we get student input, we have to spread the knowledge that this exists through all social media outlets. So it would be super helpful if Mr. DiLoretto could, or if we could do some work in conjunction with at the administration to get an email blast out to students and parents. Also an announcement through kind of the Twitter page, even on the U.S. Smith News, and also through a wellness check. That way most of the students will see this. After we get this kind of all out there, the way we'll be getting proposals is through a Google form. Yeah, that's, and yeah, I think I'm rambling at this point.
So just to thank you so much to all of you for the presentation. It's very difficult to come out and to kind of share the overview without having some of the details hammered out, which is something we discussed a little bit earlier today. That really they wanted to share the idea with you, knowing that the proposal process and the application process for submitting proposals, that's something that as a subcommittee that they need to work out prior to moving this forward. But I think the piece that's really important is that it's inviting in student voice for priority. I appreciate that they acknowledged, bringing in staff and administration to make sure that things are feasible and in alignment with the district goals and the direction that the district is going in, which is something that we discussed as well. So I was really excited to hear that there were students really interested in lifting up not just their own voices, but to lift up the voices of their peers, to have a say in decisions that are happening at the school level. And I think, Dr. DiLoretto was excited to hear about it as well. And as much as we kind of invite voices all of the time, sometimes hearing that invitation come from their peers into a process that has been created by their peers, may invite additional participation. And so there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in hammering out those very specific details of what the proposal and the application process is going to look like. But they do have some exemplars from, the video. I can send the link to you via email so that you can watch the video. That gives a little bit of insight about some of the excitement that can be generated just by inviting student voices to the table, things that they would like to see impact their school environment and their school community. So
Sharon and Jim?
Yes, Bob.
Yeah, just having listened to these young men, and I assume young women as well, and myself as a former social studies teacher of many years, I'm extremely encouraged by hearing things like this, because in the last election cycle, we heard a lot of this and that about, young people becoming involved, and also eventually, quote unquote, and I don't necessarily believe this, the lack of interest in civic engagement. And what we're seeing here tonight, makes me feel very, very good about this effort that they're putting forth. They're the foot soldiers on the ground, and in a few years they're going to be voting, and anything that would encourage young people to vote is a thumbs up for me all the way. So I just want to tell them how encouraged I am. And I have voluminous notes that I was taking during the presentation. And, right on, guys and girls, this is a noble effort. And it was something that anyone who has ever taught, would certainly applaud and encourage in the future. And good luck, folks.
Thank you,
I
Bob.
can echo that. I'll jump in, I guess.
Go ahead, Tim.
This is Tim. Yes, for sure. Thanks. This is pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. So it's kind of neat to think about it being much more inclusive, and certainly it's great to have the input. I would say that I would also encourage the group to be considering not only areas of new projects and new line items and expenses, but to be considering where they can find funds to fund those things, right? So either through efficiencies or where you might see cost savings, because the budget process involves both of those things. It's not purely identifying things to spend money on. It's obviously the sources, and you have as much as the students have a keen eye towards what would be effective, expenses that we could undergo that would have a big benefit, right? Returns on that investment. They also have a really ground floor look at areas that might we could save money as well, or things that may not be as effective as other ideas. So I'd encourage you to look at both sides of the ledger there and include both in that, because that's the reality of budgeting. So thank you.
Good point, Tim. Good point.
Is there any other discussion on the budgeting group? You guys come up with some very thoughtful ideas. Now you need to start working on some projects. If you want some participation from the board, we need to know where you're going and what you want to do. So I think that would be one of the things you guys have to work on next.
I think your cat has an idea. He's trying to get your attention.
Yeah, his idea is very different from what we're talking about today.
Well, I want to thank the group again, and thank the Student Advisory Council for bringing that forward. So you'll be hearing from them again with some more details to their plans and some documents that they'll be using to solicit proposals from their colleagues. So and you'll probably be hearing from me as far as the budgeting perspective is concerned, so that we have an opportunity to continue to fund potential projects down the road as a potential budgeting line item. So
nice idea.
That will be forthcoming, so that we can show to UConn, who is giving us the seed money, or giving the students the seed money to start this, that we are committed to the process as well. So
thank you, guys.
They are a pleasure to work with this group. So
yeah, they seem to be. We need to go into executive session at this point in time. We have a couple of contract issues that we need to discuss. So if there isn't anything else that we need to go through on the regular agenda, is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
So moved by Bob, and I saw Herb raise his hand for a second. So we have a second on that. Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, then I'll put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we need to go into executive session.